The billionaire tycoon pulled a gun on Dr. Sterling the moment he saw the cub's fur color, screaming that she had ruined his prize. But as Elizabeth shielded the newborn, the dying White Lioness suddenly rose from the surgery table, not to attack the doctor, but to hunt the man who paid for her. Before we find out why this miracle birth terrified a Las Vegas billionaire, I have a quick question. Where in the world are you watching from today? Drop your city in the comments below. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to join our family. Now, let's get into the story. Dr. Elizabeth Sterling was locking the back door of her clinic when the headlights hit her like a stage spotlight. The black SUV idled in the alley behind Charleston Boulevard, engine purring like something predatory. Two men stepped out, suits too expensive for a veterinary house call, earpieces glinting under the neon glow of downtown Vegas. Dr. Sterling? The taller one didn't wait for an answer. Mr. Vance needs you. Now. Elizabeth's keys slipped from her fingers. She knew that name. Everyone in Vegas knew that name. Sterling Vance owned half the Strip and the other half's debts. I don't do house calls after midnight, she managed, backing toward her Honda. The second man moved faster. His hand didn't touch her, didn't need to. It's not a request, document. You've got 30 seconds to grab your emergency kit. Her pulse hammered. Through the clinic window, she could see her surgical bag on the counter. Something in the man's voice made her lungs tighten. This wasn't about someone's Persian cat or a showgirl's teacup poodle. What kind of animal? She asked. The men exchanged glances. The kind that costs more than your student loans. Elizabeth grabbed her bag. The SUV swallowed her into leather seats and tinted windows. As they peeled onto I-15 South, the glittering casino lights disappeared behind them, replaced by the vast, dark throat of the Nevada desert. Her phone buzzed. A text from her roommate, "You good?" Elizabeth's thumb hovered over the screen. The partition between her and the driver was closed. Soundproof. She typed, "Emergency call. Henderson Hills." Then deleted it. The SUV turned onto an unmarked road. No streetlights. No houses. Just Joshua trees like skeletal hands reaching from the sand. Elizabeth checked her medical bag. Scalpels. Sutures. Sedatives. Her ultrasound portable. The vehicle stopped. Ahead, a mansion rose from the desert like a mirage. Spotlights. Security cameras. And behind 10-foot walls, she heard it. A roar that sounded like a mother's sorrow. The door opened. "Welcome to the Golden Cage, document." The man smiled without warmth. "Try not to let the patient die." The mansion's interior was a museum of cruelty dressed in marble and gold. Elizabeth followed the guards through corridors lined with glass enclosures, each one a gilded prison. A snow leopard paced behind bulletproof panels. An albino python coiled around a crystal tree. Animals that should have been myths, trapped like poker chips in a vault. "This is illegal," Elizabeth whispered. "So's half of Vegas, document." The guard's smirk died as they reached a steel door. "She's in here. And she's crashing." The room beyond stole Elizabeth's breath. It was configured like an ER bay, surgical lights, monitoring equipment, a stainless steel table, but the patient wasn't on the table. She was on the floor, flanked by two armed men who looked ready to shoot anything that moved. Including the lioness. Elizabeth's medical training evaporated. Duchess was massive, 400 pounds of ghost white fur and trembling muscle. Her coat should have glowed like fresh snow, but it was matted with birth fluids and sweat. Her sides heaved with contractions that were too weak, too irregular. But it was her eyes that stopped Elizabeth's heart. Human-like. Pleading. Desperate. The lioness looked directly at her, and Elizabeth heard the words as clearly as if they'd been spoken, "Help me. Save my baby." "Ma'am, you need to sedate her," one of the guards barked. She tried to bite Dr. Chen. "Because you're pointing guns at a laboring mother," Elizabeth snapped, surprising herself. She dropped to her knees 6 feet from Duchess, moving slowly. "Hey, beautiful girl. I'm here to help." Duchess's amber eyes tracked her. A low sound, not quite a growl, not quite a whimper, rumbled from her chest. A mother's sorrow made audible. Elizabeth pulled out her portable ultrasound, hands shaking. She had to see what was wrong, had to know why the labor had stalled. The screen flickered to life. And Elizabeth's blood turned to ice. The cub's position was impossible. The heartbeat was. No. That couldn't be right. Behind her, a door slammed open. "Is my investment still breathing, doctor?" The voice was smooth as casino felt and twice as dangerous. Mr. Vance had entered the room. Sterling Vance looked exactly like his billboards, silver fox hair, tailored Tom Ford suit, a smile that had closed 1,000 deals. But his eyes were reptilian. Cold. Calculating. He didn't even glance at Duchess. "Status report, doctor." He checked his Rolex. "I have a breakfast meeting in Dubai at 6. Elizabeth rose slowly, positioning herself between Vance and the lioness. "She's in obstructed labor. The cub is malpositioned, breech, possibly transverse. Her contractions are weakening. She needs an emergency C-section, fluid resuscitation, and..." "How long?" "Excuse me. How long?" Vance's words were surgical. Precise. "Until my cubs are breathing and worth what I paid for them." Cubs. Plural. Elizabeth's stomach twisted. The ultrasound had shown only one heartbeat. One impossibly rare. "Mr. Vance, there's only one viable." "Then save that one." He stepped closer, his cologne expensive and suffocating. "I don't care if you have to cut her throat to get it out. That lioness cost me 40,000. The cub is worth 10 times that to the right buyer. White Lion genetics are." "She's not an investment," Elizabeth interrupted, her voice shaking. "She's a living creature in crisis." The room went silent. Vance's smile never reached his eyes. "Dr. Sterling, may I call you Elizabeth? You graduated from UC Davis with $347,000 in student debt. Your clinic barely breaks even. Last month, you were 30 days from foreclosure." Elizabeth's breath caught. "How did he? I know everything about everyone in my city." Vance's voice dropped to a purr. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to deliver my cub. Alive. Healthy. Sellable. And in return, I'll make your debt disappear. Consider it a consulting fee." Behind them, Duchess groaned, a sound like continents grinding together. "And if I refuse?" Elizabeth whispered. Vance's smile sharpened. "Then you'll leave here with nothing. No money. No license. And Duchess will get a veterinarian who understands priorities." He nodded to the guards. "Dr. Chen is waiting in the car." Elizabeth looked at the lioness. Duchess's human-like eyes locked onto hers, pleading. "Don't leave me. Don't let them hurt my baby." The monitors beeped. Duchess's heart rate was dropping. "Clock's ticking, doctor." Vance's voice was silk wrapped around razors. "What's it going to be? Your conscience or her life?" Elizabeth's hands curled into fists. She thought of her student loans. Her dying clinic. The rational choice. Then she looked at Duchess, at the desperation in those amber eyes, at the swollen belly hiding something the ultrasound couldn't explain. "I'll do it," she heard herself say. "But I do it my way. No guns in the room. No interference. And you," she pointed at Vance, "stay outside until I'm done." Vance's laugh was sharp as breaking glass. "Brave little doctor. I almost believe you." He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "One more thing. If that cub comes out defective, wrong color, deformed, genetically compromised, you get nothing. I paid for perfection." The door slammed. Elizabeth's knees buckled. She sank beside Duchess, pressing her forehead against the lioness's massive shoulder. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." Duchess exhaled, a sound like forgiveness, like trust. And then the monitor alarm screamed. Elizabeth's hands moved on autopilot, the muscle memory of 1,000 emergencies taking over where her terror left off. "I need sterile drapes, for fluids, and someone who won't shoot me if she moves," she barked at the remaining guard. He didn't argue. She worked fast. Sterile blue surgical drapes transformed the marble floor into an operating theater. For catheter into Duchess's foreleg, the lioness flinched but didn't fight. Lactated Ringer's solution flowing. Heart rate monitor clipped to her ear. Every 60 seconds, Elizabeth checked the ultrasound screen. The cub's heartbeat was still there, but fading. And the shape, something about the skeletal structure didn't match the textbooks. The skull measurements were off by millimeters that shouldn't exist. What are you? Elizabeth thought. Duchess's breathing turned ragged. Labored. Her tongue lolled, lips pulling back from teeth the size of Elizabeth's fingers. No, 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 Elizabeth grabbed her stethoscope. Lung sounds diminishing on the left side. She's going into respiratory distress. I need to intubate. Now. She'd never intubated a lion. Hell, she'd barely intubated a Great Dane. Elizabeth pulled the endotracheal tube from her kit, the largest one she had. Please let this fit, she whispered, positioning herself at Duchess's head. The lioness's eyes found hers. Human-like. Knowing. Those amber depths held a mother's ancient wisdom, a silent communication that transcended species. Do what you must. Save my child. I've got you, Mama, Elizabeth breathed. I've got you both. She administered the sedative, just enough to relax the airway. Duchess's massive head grew heavy. Elizabeth opened her jaws, visualizing the anatomy from her exotic species rotation 7 years ago. The tube slid in. Connected the ambu bag. Squeezed. Duchess's chest rose. Again. Again. The heart monitor stabilized. 94 BPM. Then 98. Elizabeth exhaled for what felt like the first time in hours. She prepped the surgical site, painting Duchess's swollen abdomen with betadine. The iodine turned her white fur amber gold in the harsh surgical lights. Elizabeth's scalpel caught the light. One incision. That's all it would take to see what the ultrasound was hiding. She pressed the blade to fur. The lights went out. Complete. Absolute. Darkness. And in the black, something growled that wasn't Duchess. Backup generator in 30 seconds, someone shouted from the hallway. Elizabeth's penlight clicked on, a narrow beam cutting through the darkness. Her hand steadied on the scalpel. She couldn't wait. Duchess's oxygen stats were already dropping without the ventilator. Come on, come on. The lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then blazed back to life. Elizabeth didn't hesitate. The scalpel bit through skin, through the layers of muscle and fascia, following the midline with the precision of desperation. Blood welled, less than she'd feared. She suctioned, clamped, cutting deeper toward the uterine wall. Almost there. Almost. Duchess's eyes snapped open. Not fully conscious, the sedation was still working, but aware. Those human-like amber eyes found Elizabeth's face with terrible clarity. The lioness's pupils were blown wide, ringed with something that looked like understanding. Like trust. Stay with me, Mama, Elizabeth whispered, even as her hands continued the incision. Stay with me. I'm almost. The massive paw moved. Elizabeth's heart stopped. 400 pounds of apex predator, partially sedated, in surgical pain, every instinct screamed that she was about to die. That those claws would tear through her sterile gloves, through skin and bone, ending her in a heartbeat. But Duchess didn't strike. The enormous paw, rough pads warm as summer stones, lifted with impossible gentleness. It came to rest on Elizabeth's forearm. Not gripping. Not threatening. Holding. The weight was immense. The pressure steady. And in that touch, Elizabeth felt a communication older than language. A mother's plea translated through flesh and fur, help me. Save my baby. Please. Tears blurred Elizabeth's vision. I will, she choked out. I swear to God, I will. She cut through the final layer, the uterine wall. Amniotic fluid gushed. Elizabeth reached inside, her hands finding the cub's body. It was small. Too small. And the texture of the fur under her fingers felt wrong. The ultrasound images flashed through her mind, those impossible measurements, that skeletal structure that didn't quite match. She pulled. The cub emerged in a rush of fluid and membrane, limp in her hands. Elizabeth cleared the airway, rubbing the tiny body with surgical towels. "Come on, baby. Come on." A breath. A gasp. The cub's chest expanded. Elizabeth wiped away the birth fluids, her hands trembling as she revealed the fur beneath. Her breath stopped. The cub wasn't white. It was black. Obsidian black. Impossible black. A melanistic lion, a genetic anomaly so rare that only legend spoke of it. The monitors screeched. Duchess's heart rate spiked, 200 BPM, then 220. The door exploded inward. Elizabeth cradled the cub against her chest, her surgical scrubs soaked with birth fluids and disbelief. The tiny creature mewled, a sound too fragile for something born from a 400-pound predator. Its eyes were still sealed shut, but its lungs worked. Heart beating. Alive. And impossibly black. Elizabeth had seen melanistic jaguars in textbooks. Black panthers in documentaries. But a melanistic lion? The genetics didn't just defy odds, they rewrote them. White lions were already 1 in 10,000. A black cub from a white mother was statistically impossible, she whispered. Yet here it was. Obsidian fur still wet and matted, but unmistakable. Not dark brown. Not charcoal. Black as a Vegas midnight, as the desert sky above the neon strip. The cub's tiny paws flexed against her palm, claws no bigger than rose thorns. Behind her, Duchess stirred from sedation. The lioness's breathing had stabilized, the emergency C-section successful, the sutures holding. Elizabeth had saved them both. But as the mother's amber eyes focused on her newborn, Elizabeth saw something flicker in those human-like depths. Not rejection. Not confusion. Recognition. Duchess's gaze moved from the black cub to Elizabeth's face, and in that moment, the lioness seemed to understand what Elizabeth was only beginning to grasp. This baby was a miracle. And miracles in Sterling Vance's world didn't get protected. They got sold. Oh God, Elizabeth breathed. Her hands tightened protectively around the cub. What have I done? The ultrasound images replayed in her mind, those strange skeletal measurements, that impossible genetic profile. This wasn't just rare. This was unique. One of a kind. Worth millions to the right collector. Worth everything to the wrong one. The cub nuzzled against her, seeking warmth. Seeking safety. Its tiny heart thrummed against her palm, a rhythm that shouldn't exist, a life that defied every probability. Elizabeth looked down at the creature in her hands. At Duchess, who watched with a mother's desperate hope. I won't let him take you, she promised, though she had no idea how to keep it. I won't. The door slammed open. Vance stood in the threshold, flanked by 4 guards. His eyes locked onto the black cub. For 3 seconds, his face showed nothing. Then his smile spread like a knife wound. Well, he purred, stepping into the room. It seems Dr. Sterling has delivered me something far more valuable than I paid for. Vance's expression cycled through emotions like a slot machine, confusion, disgust, fury, then landing on something far worse. Greed. What the hell is that? He stepped closer, his polished shoes clicking on the blood-streaked marble. That's not white. That's defective. Elizabeth pulled the cub tighter against her chest. She's perfectly healthy. All vitals are. I paid for White Lion genetics. Vance's voice cracked like a whip. 40,000 for the mother. 60 for the stud from Johannesburg. And you deliver me a black cub? What kind of genetic mutation? Melanism, Elizabeth interrupted, her veterinary training overriding her terror. It's the opposite of leucism. An extremely rare expression of rare. Vance stopped mid-rant. His eyes narrowed. How rare? Elizabeth's mouth went dry. She shouldn't have said that. Shouldn't have given him. There are no documented cases of melanistic lions in recorded history, she admitted quietly. White lions are 1 in 10,000. This, she looked down at the tiny black creature, this is 1 in a billion. Maybe 1 in existence. The room fell silent. Vance's fury transformed. His face smoothed into that boardroom smile, the one that had bankrupted competitors and crushed rivals. He pulled out his phone, fingers flying across the screen. "Marcus," he said into the device. "Wake up. I need you to contact our friends in Dubai, Shanghai, and Moscow. Tell them I have something very exclusive coming to market." He paused, eyes locked on the cub. A shadow lion. The only one on Earth. Elizabeth's blood turned to ice. Behind her, Duchess growled, a sound that resonated in her chest like an earthquake's warning tremor. The lioness tried to rise, surgical sutures stretching. Her human-like eyes blazed with a mother's rage, fixed on Vance. "Don't let him touch my baby." "Mr. Vance, she just had major surgery," Elizabeth said, positioning herself between the lioness and the billionaire. "The cub needs to bond with her mother, needs colostrum in the first. The cub needs a climate-controlled transport and a buyer willing to pay 8 figures." Vance extended his hand. "Give it to me, doctor." "No." The word escaped before Elizabeth could stop it. Vance's smile vanished. "Excuse me. This animal is under my medical care," Elizabeth said, her voice shaking but steady. "I'm ethically obligated to." Vance snapped his fingers. 2 guards moved forward, hands on their weapons. "Dr. Sterling," Vance said softly, "you're holding $10 million of my property. Hand it over, take your payment, and walk away. Or..." Duchess roared. The sound shattered the air, primal, deafening, a mother's war cry that made the surgical lights swing on their fixtures. The lioness surged upward despite her sutures, despite her weakness, placing her massive body between Elizabeth and Vance. And her human-like eyes locked onto Elizabeth's with crystal clarity. "Run." The window exploded inward. Glass rained down like diamonds as a steel canister crashed through the window, spinning across the marble floor. Flashbang, someone screamed. Elizabeth threw herself over the cub, curling her body into a shield as the world turned white and silent. The explosion wasn't loud, it erased sound, replaced it with a high-pitched whine that drowned out thought. When her vision cleared, chaos had consumed the room. Duchess was on her feet, impossibly, despite the fresh surgical wounds. Blood seeped through her white fur where sutures had torn, but the lioness didn't seem to feel it. She stood between Elizabeth and Vance's guards, her body a living barricade. 400 pounds of maternal fury that made grown men with guns back toward the walls. Vance himself had stumbled backward, his expensive suit dusted with drywall and glass. "Tranquilize her. Now." "Sir, the veterinarian is right behind." "I don't care. Take the shot." The guard raised his tranquilizer rifle. Something inside Elizabeth snapped. "No." She stood, the black cub clutched against her chest, and stepped beside Duchess. Not behind her. Beside her. "You aren't touching them." Vance's face purpled. "Dr. Sterling, you are interfering with animal cruelty. With illegal exotic trafficking." Elizabeth's voice grew stronger, fed by adrenaline and rage she didn't know she possessed. "This facility violates every USDA regulation. That snow leopard in the hallway is endangered. And this," she held up the black cub, "this miracle you want to sell was just born 90 seconds ago. She hasn't even opened her eyes yet." The cub mewled, as if agreeing. Duchess rumbled, not quite a growl, not quite a purr. Her massive head turned slightly toward Elizabeth, and those human-like amber eyes held something that transcended species. A mother recognizing an ally. A queen acknowledging a defender. "Stand with me," those eyes said. "Protect what I cannot." Elizabeth felt tears burning her cheeks. She reached out, slowly, carefully, and placed her free hand on Duchess's shoulder. The lioness's fur was warm, damp with blood and sweat, trembling with exhaustion and adrenaline. "You'll have to go through both of us," Elizabeth said quietly. Vance's laugh was sharp as breaking glass. "You think you're a hero, Doctor? You think?" Red and blue lights flooded through the broken window. Sirens. Multiple vehicles. The distinctive bark of police radios. Vance's face went white. "What did you?" Elizabeth smiled through her tears. "My medical tablet has a distress beacon. Required by Nevada veterinary law for emergency house calls. She'd activated it the moment the SUV turned onto that unmarked desert road. I'm guessing that's either Henderson PD or FBI. Hands where we can see them. The voice boomed through a megaphone, backed by the unmistakable sound of tactical teams taking positions. Vance's guards froze. Duchess roared, triumphant, defiant, alive. And somewhere in the desert night, Elizabeth heard the most beautiful sound she'd ever known. The approaching thunder of a SWAT helicopter. The FBI raid took 17 minutes. Elizabeth watched from behind a line of tactical vehicles as federal agents swarmed Vance's mansion like avenging angels. The casino tycoon was face down on the marble, zip-tied and reading his rights, while wildlife officers documented every illegal enclosure in his twisted menagerie. The snow leopard. The albino python. Animals that had been poker chips in Vance's collection, each one tagged, photographed, and prepared for relocation. But Elizabeth only cared about two. Dr. Sterling. A female agent approached, her expression softening as she saw the black cub still nestled against Elizabeth's chest. Animal control is here. We need to process. She stays with me until her mother wakes up, Elizabeth said firmly. Non-negotiable. The agent looked at the cub, then at Elizabeth's tear-streaked, blood-stained face. She nodded. Big Cat Rescue Sanctuary is sending a transport team. ETA 20 minutes. Elizabeth exhaled for what felt like the first time in hours. Behind her, paramedics, veterinary specialists from the sanctuary, worked on Duchess. Fresh sutures. 4 antibiotics. Oxygen support. The lioness was sedated but stable, her massive chest rising and falling with steady breaths. The wound from her heroic stand was already being repaired by hands that understood her worth wasn't measured in dollars. She's going to make it, one of the vets told Elizabeth. You saved her life. Both their lives. Elizabeth looked down at the black cub. The tiny creature had finally opened her eyes, pale gold, like sunrise on desert sand. Those eyes gazed up at Elizabeth with complete trust, complete peace. Family, Elizabeth thought. That's what we fought for. 3 months later. The sanctuary observation deck overlooked 50 acres of protected Nevada wilderness. Elizabeth visited every Saturday, always bringing fresh medical supplies and always staying until sunset. Today, she watched as Duchess lounged beneath a Joshua tree, the black cub, now 20 pounds of pure energy and mischief, pouncing on her mother's twitching tail. The White Lioness looked up as Elizabeth approached the fence. Those human-like amber eyes held recognition. Gratitude. And something that looked like a smile. The cub noticed Elizabeth and bounded over, pressing her dark nose against the barrier. Elizabeth laughed, reaching through to scratch behind the impossibly soft ears. She's thriving, the sanctuary director said, joining Elizabeth. Both of them are. We've had offers from zoos, conservation programs, even National Geographic wants to document them. And we said no. The director smiled. Some families deserve privacy. Elizabeth watched as Duchess called to her cub with a low chuff. The black cub, already showing the regal bearing of her mother, trotted back to curl against the lioness's white belly. Perfect contrast. Perfect harmony. The sterile blue room felt like a lifetime ago, the terror, the guns, the impossible choice. Now, there was only this, sunshine on fur, a mother's gentle grooming, a miracle cub playing with her own shadow. Elizabeth pressed her palm against the fence. Duchess placed her massive paw on the other side, a perfect mirror of that night. Thank you, those eyes said. Elizabeth smiled through happy tears. Because sometimes, the fiercest love is found in the wildest hearts. If you believe that every life is a miracle worth fighting for, no matter how powerful the enemy, like and share this story. Subscribe now for more stories like this.